A cheerful brown-haired girl named Yu Hansol winks at her 21,000 viewers, welcoming them back to her live broadcast. Yu Hansol is depicted in her school uniform, holding a phone and striking a confident pose. She smiles smugly, enjoying the feeling of being the center of attention as everyone stares at her. However, online videos paint a different picture, questioning why Yu Hansol, as a bystander to a crime, refuses to defend herself. In a subsequent livestream, a panicked Yu Hansol attempts to clear her name, insisting she never even attended the middle school in question. Completely overwhelmed, her face contorts in terror as she silently wonders what she should do next. Following the disastrous broadcast, she isolates herself, lying alone in a dark room. The experience turns her into a complete hermit shut-in, humorously shown with a full beard. A woman with shorter brown hair finds Yu Hansol lying listlessly in bed and calls out to her. The woman, her sister, expresses her concern, asking how long Hansol plans on staying in bed without eating. With tears streaming down her face, Yu Hansol pleads with her sister to just leave her alone. Spotting books in her sister's hands, Hansol weakly asks what they are, calling her a bookworm. Her sister presents several novels she borrowed to cheer her up, including The Time the Stars Dream and an old romance called Inso. Hansol dismisses the books as outdated historical romance, but her sister enthusiastically promises they will cheer her up. As her sister raves about the unique charm of the novel Inso, Hansol simply turns her back, ignoring her. Her sister's next words finally cut through her apathy. It has been 6 months since the incident. Yu Hansol bolts upright in bed, shocked to learn that so much time has passed. A new resolve fills her as she realizes that if celebrities can take a few months off, she can make her comeback too. Full of sudden energy, she shoos her surprised sister out of the room, determined to start a live broadcast right away. Looking at her reflection, she confidently declares that she is returning to her awesome life as Yu Hansol. She then sees the stack of books her sister left, accompanied by a loving note from her family. A warm blush spreads across her face as she reads their heartfelt words of support. An intense, ethereal light flashes through the room. Suddenly, a dark red splatter appears on the wall as she clutches the note. Finding herself in an unfamiliar blue ball gown, she lets out a scream of pure disbelief. A girl with green hair and a yellow gown is startled by the scream, demanding to know what's wrong. The brown-haired girl looks around in a daze, asking the girl who she is and questioning if she's even alive. The green-haired girl scoffs, calling her a brat for pretending not to know what's happening. The brown-haired girl thinks to herself that she's never seen this person before and must be dreaming. She glances around her new surroundings, completely lost and disoriented. Looking at the elegantly dressed people, she feels like she's stepped into a scene from a romance fantasy novel. Her eyes widen as a shocking thought begins to form. The unbelievable truth dawns on her. She has been reincarnated into a romance fantasy novel. She looks down at her elaborate blue dress, flustered by the impossible situation. A wave of panic hits her as she realizes that to get back home, she'll have to see the story through to its ending. She recognizes the art on a book cover from her memory, confirming she's in the world of The Time the Stars Dream. Her fear quickly turns to excitement at the thought of meeting the handsome male lead, Count Cloyd. The story introduces Count Cloyd, a strikingly handsome man with silver hair, known for being cold but exceptionally capable. A butler explains that because the Count speaks so little, his terse words must be carefully interpreted. His personality is a contradiction. He eats like a starving man but speaks with the detached air of a connoisseur. The narration reveals that one woman managed to melt his frozen heart in an instant. That woman's name was Estelle, a beautiful girl with brown hair and purple eyes. A scene shows Count Cloyd completely captivated by Estelle's beauty. Believing she has become Estelle, the girl resolves to win over Count Cloyd to secure her ticket back home. The green-haired girl tells Estelle it's time to go, warning her to be careful in her long dress. Estelle beams with excitement, eagerly asking if they are going to a ball. As they walk, something in the distance catches her eye, causing her to pause. She stares in confusion at a crowd of students wearing familiar Korean high school uniforms. A student with a microphone enthusiastically announces the start of the sophomore ladies' princess cosplay event. Estelle stands frozen in place, the words sophomore and cosplay echoing in her mind as her fantasy shatters. The scene shifts to a modern Korean high school, where a large banner announces the 37th annual festival. On an outdoor stage, the announcer cheers for applause as the cosplaying girls, including the one in the blue dress, take a bow. The brown-haired girl's mind goes blank with utter confusion. She grabs the green-haired girl, frantically asking where they are, who the other girl is, and confirming that she is not Estelle. The green-haired girl angrily retorts that they're in Seoul, identifies herself as Kim Minjo, and reveals the brown-haired girl is Yoo Hansol. The horrifying truth crashes down on Yoo Hansol. This isn't a romance fantasy reincarnation after all. Her panic escalates as she questions the existence of Count Cloyd and the Starch Empire, wondering why she is wearing this dress in Seoul. Kim Minjo misinterprets her friend's terror, thinking she's just scared of the party. She clarifies that it's not a real party, but their school festival. Yoo Hansol stands frozen in her elaborate dress, stunned into silence by the revelation. Forcing herself to calm down, she tries to remember what other books her sister had borrowed. A flashback shows her sister looking over her with concern in her dark room. She recalls her sister mentioning she also borrowed an old, popular Inso novel, along with The Time the Stars Dream. Her memory focuses on the stack of books, including one oddly titled The Guy Who Kisses You for 8,470 Days. She pictures the book's cover, a handsome, silver-haired boy flaunting cash in front of two fawning schoolgirls. Back in the present, Hansel realizes with dread that this was the novel her sister couldn't stop talking about. Recalling her sister's excited rambling about the plot, Hansel finally understands she has been reincarnated into an Inso, not a romance fantasy. She clutches her head in despair as the announcer and Kim Minjo look on, confused by her breakdown. A new resolve hardens within her. Whether it's fantasy or Inso, she must see the story to its end to get out. A single tear of frustration escapes as the reality of her situation sinks in. She throws a tantrum in the middle of the stage, while the announcer misinterprets her outburst as a display of offensive charm. Desperately wishing to wake up from this nightmare, Yoo Hansol lets out a piercing scream. Her scream coincides with the dramatic arrival of four handsome male students, hailed by the crowd as the Four Heavenly Kings. She stares in horror, wondering if this pack of pretty boys are the protagonists her sister had mentioned. The crowd erupts with cheers for the boys, especially for one named Baek Hosu. The Four Heavenly Kings walk through the festival, with the silver-haired leader complaining about the noisy crowd. A blushing girl approaches Baek Hosu, offering him money and asking to meet him on the rooftop later. He coldly rejects her offer, stating he doesn't do business during the festival, and walks away. While other girls swoon at his cool demeanor, Yoo Hansol is completely scandalized by the transaction she just witnessed. She reels in disbelief, horrified by what the girl was asking for, and disappointed in the apparent protagonist. Kim Minjo questions Hansel's odd behavior, while Hansel silently laments the over-the-top nature of her new reality. Hansel confronts a shocked Kim Minjo, questioning why the lead hero's lips are so cheap and why a student is involved in something so suggestive. Suddenly confident, Hansel crosses her arms and challenges someone off-screen, demanding they repeat what they just said. Her smug expression instantly morphs into one of pure, wide-eyed confusion. Nearby students are shocked by her statement, wondering what that brat just said about the hero. Now face-to-face with Baek Hosu, Hansel realizes she is completely and utterly doomed. Baek Hosu glares down at her, his voice low and menacing as he asks what she just said. Hansel stammers in terror as the crowd recognizes the top-ranked student, Hosu. Looking at the four boys, she realizes her sister's description of the distinctive Four Heavenly Kings was spot on. Baek Hosu presses for an answer, egged on by a fangirl demanding he teach the presumptuous Hansel a lesson. The crowd turns on Hansel, outraged that she dared to call their idol's lips cheap. Panicking, Hansel remembers her sister saying the hero is idolized and decides she must use her influencer skills to get out of this. A thought flashes through her mind, telling her to use her professional wit to escape. In a desperate move, she throws herself into a full, formal bow on the ground. The entire crowd, including the Four Heavenly Kings, stares in stunned silence at her sudden act of apology. Two girls in the crowd suddenly understand her comment, realizing that 8,471 is, in fact, quite cheap. Hosu's friends try to de-escalate the situation, telling him to be gentle and noting how scary he is when angry. A sneaker-clad foot stops right in front of the bowing Hansol, who looks up in terror. Kim Minjo rushes to her side to defend her, but Baek Hosu coldly brushes her off, telling her to get lost. A wicked grin spreads across Baek Hosu's face as he declares that she is quite the entertaining one. Baek Hosu internally fumes at her audacity for valuing his lips, as a terrified Yoo Hansol trembles before him. Leaning in close with a smirk, he challenges her to prove how much her own lips are worth. He gently tilts her chin up, pulling her closer. Hansel's mind screams that he's a psycho as he moves in for a kiss, a bizarre rainbow aura appearing around his hand. She shoves him away with a start, yelling at him to move. Leaping back, she shouts that she can't stand the crime-level cringe of the situation. Clenching her fists, she feels the need to punch something and recalls her sister's words about inso novels. She realizes she's playing out an absolute unchanging law of inso as she stumbles and falls toward him. Kim Minjo and the other onlookers gasp in shock at the sudden turn of events. She lands directly on top of Baek Hosu, who is now sprawled on the ground. In a classic trope moment, their lips accidentally meet in a kiss. The entire crowd of students stares in utter, horrified disbelief. Wah! A collective scream erupts from the onlookers. A blue-haired student coolly comments on the ruckus, while his friend exclaims, "Oh my!" and Kim Minjo looks on in shock. Hosu's fans shout in outrage, telling Hansel to get away from him, while one is too stunned to move. A trio of fangirls watches intently, with one revealing she's timing the kiss. A pink flip phone shows their accidental kiss has already lasted a shocking 40 seconds. The kiss finally breaks as Hansel sits up, completely dazed from the fall. Baek Hosu gets to his feet, a sly smile on his face as he remarks that she is incredibly bold. Hansel stares blankly, still processing the unbelievable situation. With his arms crossed, Hosu calculates that a 40-second kiss, by her own valuation, costs over 3 million won. He gives her until tomorrow to pay, causing Hansel to panic and insist that the impossible demand is for an accident. Enraged, Hosu glares down at her, questioning how she dared to insult the top-ranked student without having the money to pay. As Hansel protests, Hosu declares that if she can't pay with money, she'll have to make up for it with her body, and that the matter is decided. Baek Hosu addresses the entire student body, commanding them to listen to his declaration as a member of the Four Heavenly Kings. He dramatically points at a stunned Hansel and announces that she is now his officially appointed lackey. Hansel is horrified as a fangirl cheers in agreement, and a chibi Hosu smugly tells her to remember it. She springs to her feet, demanding to know what kind of nonsense he's spouting. Hosu calmly replies that he meant what he said and tells her she's been chattering away non-stop. After telling her to tone it down, Hosu dismisses the entire crowd, unilaterally ending the festival, much to Hansel's seething rage. Now back in her bedroom, Yoo Hansel screams into her pillow, furious that he called her the one who talks the most. She sits up, a moment of clarity washing over her, as she wonders if the entire ordeal was just a dream. She laughs in relief, reassuring herself that she couldn't possibly be dead, and brushing it off as a ridiculous dream. A sudden buzzing sound comes from her bedside table, where an old pink flip phone is vibrating. Her hope shatters as she screams, realizing the buzzing phone means it wasn't a dream after all. She picks up the unfamiliar phone in utter shock, questioning how she could have really been pulled into the novel's world. A text from Baek Hosu calls her a lip thief and threatens her to bring him snacks tomorrow, confirming her horrifying new reality. She looks around her room, confused to see that despite being in a novel, her house is exactly as she left it. Standing in her familiar living room, she remains completely disoriented by the conflicting realities. The weight of her situation crashes down as she panics about her influencer status, her comeback, and losing all her followers. Taking a shaky breath, she resolves to stay calm and figure out a way to escape this nightmare. Staring at the threatening text message, she decides her best option is to go out and search for clues instead of hiding. Arriving at the school, she wanders the halls looking for Hosu, only to be spotted by a blue-haired student who wonders if she's a zombie. Startled, she turns to face the student, who simply laughs and apologizes for scaring her. The blue-haired boy smiles warmly, telling her that she was very entertaining at the festival yesterday. Thinking he seems like a classic secondary male lead, Hansel thanks him as he points her toward an empty classroom where Hosu is likely working his business. She walks down the hallway, nervously wondering if business means what she thinks it does. Peeking into the room, she lets out a shocked scream. The blue-haired boy, who had followed her, is equally stunned, his mouth dropping open in the shape of a heart. Hansel flushes in disbelief, realizing the kissing sounds she hears don't match her assumption of what his business was. Hansel debates peeking into the classroom, calling herself a pervert before giving in to her curiosity for just one look. Wah! Baek Hosu bursts out of the room, grabbing a startled Hansel and demanding to know what she's doing there. Panicking, Hansel nervously explains that she's just there to give him the bread and milk he demanded. As another girl thanks Hosu and leaves, Hansel marvels at his business, wondering what kind of person he'll grow up to be. Hosu glares dismissively, telling Hansel she can leave and should ditch the snacks she brought. After a moment of hesitation, Hansel abruptly throws the bag of snacks at him. She sees, remembering his long list of demands for her as his new lackey: snacks, shoulder rubs, and fanning. He condescendingly calls her a good lackey and dismisses her, while Hansel forces herself to hold back her anger for now. A horrifying realization dawns on her. To escape this novel, she might have to fall in love with Baek Hosu. Her thoughts are shattered as Baek Hosu furiously yells at her to stop staring and get lost. Walking away, she despairs at the thought of falling for him and desperately wonders if there's another way to escape. She clutches her head in panic, realizing she knows nothing about the plot because she never actually read the novel. She remembers her sister calling it a light read, a book she had dismissed at the time as too childish to ever pick up. Desperate for clues, she checks her phone, only to find it's completely new and offers no helpful information. Her eyes land on a single .txt file, and a spark of hope ignites as she wonders if it's the novel's text. Her eyes widen, sparkling with the sudden possibility of having found her way out. She finds a file matching the novel's title, Public Funds 8,470, One to Get a Kiss, and clicks on it, puzzled by the name. Wah! She holds the phone in triumph, ecstatic that the entire novel's content is right in her hands. She begins to read, but her hope plummets as she discovers that crucial letters and words in the text are completely garbled. She cries out in frustration, realizing that only the most important words are unreadable, leaving her with no clear path forward. Still, she clings to hope, believing she can infer the missing words from context if she follows the novel's path. Her resolve renewed, she shouts a promise to her family that she will see the story to its end and come back. On the school rooftop, she vows to return to her world, live in glory, and earn enough to buy her parents a Lexus. Her expression is firm with resolve as a single emotional tear streams down her cheek. Overcome with emotion but determined, she wipes away her tears. Meanwhile, Baek Hosu heads upstairs, deciding to skip class on the rooftop until his next reservation. He freezes mid-step, his face a mask of pure shock at what he sees before him. In a flash, something or someone rushes past. In a shocking turn, Hosu lunges and grabs Hansel's hand as she falls from the rooftop ledge. Dangling from the roof, he stares down in disbelief, shouting at the girl he just saved. Hansel looks up, equally stunned to see Baek Hosu holding on to her. Holding her tight, he furiously accuses her of trying to die in front of him, an accusation she frantically denies. He panics, wondering if he overworked her or if she couldn't handle the debt he imposed. Terrified, she insists that he's got it all wrong and furiously asks why he's been the only one talking this whole time. He falls silent, looking down at her with a confused expression. The tension breaks as he slumps down to sit on the ground, exhausted. With his eyes closed, he sighs and tells her to spill whatever is on her mind. He offers her a rare opportunity to share all her worries with him, the top-ranked Baek Hosu of the Four Heavenly Kings. Completely bewildered, Hansel thinks he's jumping to wild conclusions all on his own. He waxes poetic, claiming that beneath his flashy exterior, he's just a lonely tiger that fears the world. He dramatically poses, declaring that he shouts, "Come at me, world," to face his fears. As he reaches for her, she stares back in utter horror at his dramatic monologue. Internally, she screams that he really talks a lot. She shudders, thinking his dramatic, "Come at me, world" line is the cringiest thing she has ever heard. He pulls her to sit beside him, insisting it helps to talk, as she protests that he has completely misunderstood the situation. He looks at her with genuine concern, asking why she tried to run away from this world. As she sits silently, she can't help but think that he just keeps talking about himself. She quietly reflects that her own life, before this, was almost perfect except for her fall from grace. She explains how she was on top of the world until someone she barely knew ruined her with lies, causing everyone to turn away. She explains that people latched onto the lies as if they'd been waiting for a chance, and she sadly accepts the gist of her tragic tale. Hansel stares blankly, realizing she's barely even begun to explain her tragic backstory. Hosu offers a surprisingly accurate, if simplified, summary of her story, which she internally admits isn't far off. As Hosu turns to leave, Hansel gets flustered and blurts out a confusing boast about her rank being higher than his. After he leaves, Hansel notices that Baek Hosu accidentally left his phone on the ground. She picks up the forgotten phone, examining it with a thoughtful expression. A mischievous idea strikes her, and she cheerfully calls out, "Hello!" while looking at the phone. Her playful mood shatters instantly as she's struck by a look of pure, abject horror. She finds herself confronted by a menacing trio of students who aggressively question her. Cowering on the ground, she screams in confusion and fear as the students corner her. "Wah!" She cries out in pain after being struck in the stomach. Reeling from the blow, she can't believe she, a famous influencer, just got hit and desperately hopes no one saw. The bullies reveal their motive, furiously accusing her of stealing a kiss from Baek Hosu and declaring her day is ruined. She tries to laugh it off as a mistake, but her frustration shows as she argues that they all could have paid for a kiss. The lead bully dismisses her excuse, threatening a worse beating from senior students and warning her that she's no longer safe downtown. Not satisfied, the bully raises her hand, threatening to hit Hansel 10 more times. As the bully commands her to brace for impact, Hansel shuts her eyes and prepares for the worst. Just as the blow is about to land, the bullies freeze in shock, spotting someone behind Hansel. Their fear is explained as the serene, second-ranked member of the Four Heavenly Kings, Cheon-young, is revealed sitting nearby. The bullies' aggression instantly melts into fawning adoration as they recognize one of Hosu's powerful friends. Cheon-young calmly addresses the bullies without even turning around. He turns with a dazzling smile, casually reminding the bullies that they're picking on Baek Hosu's official lackey. He calmly explains that Hosu is very protective of his people, a fact that sends the bullies into a panic. To Hansel's complete surprise, Cheon-young puts an arm around her and declares that she's his friend. His smile turns intimidating as he warns them to never mess with his or Hosu's people again. Thoroughly terrified, the bullies apologize profusely and flee from his protective presence. Cheon-young gently wipes a smudge from her face, leaving her flustered as she thanks him. He formally introduces himself as Cheon-young, reminding her that they've met before. Finding her entertaining, Cheon-young smiles and suggests they should hang out more often. She agrees, and he then asks for Hosu's phone, which she hands over. His demeanor changes as he notices blood on her lip, gently reaching toward her face with concern. Just as he cups her cheek, an unseen person interrupts, demanding to know what they're doing. Baek Hosu appears, announcing his own arrival with a smirk. Hosu accuses Cheon-young of picking on Hansel, an accusation Cheon-young immediately denies. In a surprising move, Hosu yanks Hansel behind him, possessively declaring she's his lackey and warning Cheon-young off. Stunned by his sudden protective behavior, Hansel inwardly panics at his complete change in attitude. Cheon-young calmly explains that he was only helping Hansel because Hosu's own fan club was attacking her. Hosu whirls around to face Hansel, demanding to know if Cheon-young's story is true. His job done, Cheon-young gives a cheerful wink and takes his leave. Hosu yells at the departing Cheon-young, disgusted by his cringy behavior, while Hansel looks on in horror. The confrontation over, Hosu checks on his lackey, and she returns his forgotten cell phone. He callously remarks on how pathetic she looks, enraging Hansol, who knows it was his fan club's fault. Her train of thought is broken when he orders her to do something, leaving her thinking in shock. Follow him? As Hosu walks off without explanation, she reluctantly follows, demanding to know where they're going. He leads her up a staircase as she continues to question what's happening, wondering if she said something to upset him. He stops in a hallway and gestures for her to enter a nearby room. Leading her to the nurse's office, he points to a bed and bluntly tells his lackey to lie down. He announces he's cleared his entire schedule, just to serve her, an offer that leaves her completely stunned. Overwhelmed with embarrassment, Hansel blushes deeply amidst a fantasy of cute, sparkling background characters. He pushes her toward the bed, declaring that this service is his way of making up for his fan club's attack. As he pushes her along, she panics, wondering if this scene was in the novel, and fearing his offer of service means a kiss. Ah! Hansel panics internally, blushing as she realizes she's never done anything like this before. Hosu softly asks if she dislikes it, and she frantically insists that she likes the idea. He casually dismisses her concern, promising to be gentle, which only shocks her more. Overwhelmed by the moment, she protests that everything is happening too suddenly. Internally, she screams, thinking he's completely crazy. Lying back, she finds the situation far too stimulating, admitting she's not immune to this cringeworthy world. He leans over her on the bed, getting her attention with a simple, "Hey!" As she reacts in surprise, he calmly instructs her to turn around. Annoyed, he forcefully flips her onto her stomach, causing her to yelp in surprise. He ignores her pleas and pushes down on her back with force. Crack! She lets out a terrified scream as a loud cracking sound echoes from her back. A series of jarring cracks reverberate as he continues to apply pressure. Lying face down, Hansel is left in a state of utter confusion. She springs up, shouting in disbelief, "What the?" He calmly explains that she is receiving a chiropractic adjustment. With a smudge on her cheek, she stares in wide-eyed shock, shouting, "What?" Hosu clarifies that for 8,471, he provides a 10-second chiropractic adjustment, leaving her speechless. Blushing and utterly baffled, Hansel can only stare in stunned silence. Hosu glares at her, angrily demanding to know what else she could have possibly expected. Realizing the misunderstanding, Hansel bursts into nervous laughter, marveling at the absurdity of a male lead giving chiropractic adjustments at school. He regally informs her that as his personal lackey, she is being honored with a longer, complimentary service. As the shock wears off, a new realization begins to dawn on her. Stretching, she's amazed to find her fatigue gone, replaced by a pleasant, languid feeling. She marvels at Hosu's unbelievably professional touch as he smirks with satisfaction. She praises his incredible skill, admitting she feels completely refreshed, but he nonchalantly dismisses it as nothing impressive. Completely relaxed, she suddenly slumps over, falling asleep on his lap. He freezes in shock, shouting in disbelief as he realizes she's fallen asleep on his knee. Annoyed, he internally fumes at her audacity for using the top-ranked Hosu's knee as a pillow. He decides to let it slide for today while she sleeps soundly, wondering if the adjustment is why she feels so at ease. Smiling peacefully in her sleep, she concludes that being possessed in this world isn't so bad after all. The scene transitions to an exterior shot of the school building under a clear blue sky. Hansel continues to sleep soundly on Hosu's lap inside the nurse's office. A cheerful, pink-haired girl with a yellow bow introduces herself as Seogahyul. Beaming with a bright smile, Seogahyul politely asks for everyone to take good care of her. The scene shifts as Hansel slowly wakes up in a bed, looking dazed. Back in the nurse's office, she murmurs, "Mom?" in her sleep. Hosu angrily shoves her off his lap, yelling at her for calling him Mom and ordering her to wake up. He scolds her for sleeping all day, but she just apologizes meekly before he tells her it's time to go. Later, resting in her own bed, she reflects on how wonderfully she slept after the adjustment. Holding her phone, she contemplates whether she should start the next day by following the novel's plot exactly. The next day begins with a bright, sunny view of the school. On her way to school, she reads the novel on her phone, learning the protagonist jumps over a wall after being late. She resolves to follow the plot, determined to see the story through to its ending. She walks resolutely down the sidewalk toward the school. Standing before a brick wall, she plans to climb over and collide with Baekhosu as soon as she hears his voice, kickstarting the novel's events. Stepping onto the ledge, she prepares to jump down and intentionally bump into Baekhosu. Crash! Hansel lands hard after jumping down from the brick wall. Crouching on the ground, she screams in agony, complaining about how much her legs hurt. As she nurses her aching legs, a voice from off-screen calls out, "Lackey?" She looks up in feigned surprise, happy to see Baekhosu, and exclaiming that he was there all along. Flanked by his friends, Hosu coolly acknowledges his lackey, jokingly questioning her dramatic entrance from the sky. Flustered, Hansel stammers an excuse before asking what he and his friends were doing. Hosu smiles, beginning to explain their activity. He says they were choosing a photo for Sack's World, leaving Hansel stunned at the mention of a Stone Age social network. As Hosu's group discusses which photo to post, Hansel reflects on how ancient they all seem. Hosu announces he's posting a photo of a person's back and asks his lackey for caption ideas. The full tacky photo is revealed on his flip phone, as Hansel internally panics over what the caption should be. Horrified, she asks if he's really going to post such a cringy picture and tells him to get it together. Hosu looks annoyed, asking what her problem is and questioning if she's even on the Sack social network. He smugly assumes she must not have any friends, which she frantically denies. Enraged, Hansel yells that she's actually famous in reality and calls his life pitiful. She quickly explains that a good caption helps a photo sell better, offering her expertise. Hosu smirks and suggests a cheesy caption, "My heart would be lost without you." Hansel is left completely speechless by his terrible suggestion. She thinks to herself that his idea is nonsense and that just "lost" would be better. One of Hosu's friends, a boy with blonde hair, chimes in with another idea. "Love is a delicate dynamite?" The boys enthusiastically brainstorm more cringy captions as Hansel thanks her lucky stars that TikTok doesn't exist here. Trying to salvage the situation, Hansel suggests they use a more famous, classic quote instead. Her eyes light up as a perfect idea comes to mind. She begins to recite a dramatic monologue about being trapped in a school that's like a prison. The boys look on in stunned silence as she continues her speech about suffering through studying until liberation. She finishes with a flourish, then nervously laughs it off as a famous meme. To her shock, Baekhosu is so moved by her words that a single tear streams down his face. Hansel stares in utter disbelief at his unexpectedly emotional reaction. Hosu and his friends are all sobbing, with Hosu blaming dust in his eyes, while another boy cries about how relatable her words were. Utterly dumbfounded by their melodramatic response, Hansel is left in a state of shock. Wiping his eyes, Hosu looks at her with wonder and asks if she wrote that poem herself. She quickly waves her hands, denying it and claiming the words just popped into her head. Hosu moves closer, telling her with a sincere, sparkling gaze that he really likes the poem. And her too. Flustered and blushing, Hansel is taken aback by his sudden and intense confession. Hosu thoughtfully reflects that her words brought him to tears, changing his perception of literature. As he looks away shyly, she finds herself thinking he seems cuter than she expected. She stares at him, wondering if this unexpected turn of events is really happening. Back in the classroom, the green-haired girl calls out to Yu Hansel, noting how well she's getting along with Baekhosu after skipping class together. Hansel just laughs and tells her friend to wait and see, hinting at a bigger plan. She smiles genuinely, thinking to herself how long it's been since she's had this much fun. Hansel's happy mood is shattered as a thought bubble describes the beautiful features of the novel's true heroine. The green-haired girl abruptly announces she's going to see Baek, leaving Hansel stunned and confused. She panics, realizing she's been acting like the female lead when she isn't. Checking her phone, she confirms the original plot remains unchanged, with the real heroine set to vault the wall. Looking outside, she spots Baekhosu and his friends, realizing the key event is about to happen. Just then, the pink-haired girl dashes past, shouting that she's late for class. The pink-haired girl leaps dramatically into the air, colliding directly with Baekhosu. Choo! With hearts floating around them, the pink-haired girl kisses a surprised Baekhosu. Hansel stares, completely frozen, as the novel's fated encounter unfolds right before her eyes. A description of the pink-haired girl's perfect, heroine-like features confirms she is the one from the novel. Staring in horror at the fated couple, Hansel realizes with a jolt that the pink-haired girl is the novel's true female lead. Shove! Baekhosu violently pushes the pink-haired girl away, yelling at the pumpkin to get out of his mind and his way. The pink-haired girl retorts angrily, questioning who he thinks he is to call her a pumpkin. A girl with short black hair whispers to the pink-haired girl that he is Baekhosu, the region's #1 four-heavenly king, leaving her utterly baffled. The short-haired girl blushes and clenches her fists, starstruck by the famous student. The pink-haired girl reels back in utter shock at the revelation. From the ground, Baekhosu points an accusing finger at the pink-haired girl for calling him trash, an insult she doubles down on. As they argue, he vows never to forgive the pumpkin, while she comically flails on the ground, telling the trash to stay away from her. Hansel turns and walks away from the chaotic scene. Baekhosu points after Hansel, asking his lackey if she's really leaving with him. Jaeonyang teases Hosu about looking cozy with Hansel, but Hosu quickly denies it. Smiling slyly, Jaeonyang thinks to himself that this is going to be interesting. In a classic romantic trope, Baekhosu leans close to the pink-haired girl, asking if she dislikes it, to which she flusteredly insists she likes it. Watching the scene unfold, Hansel grits her teeth and clenches her fist, overwhelmed with humiliation. The scene shifts to the empty schoolyard with its soccer field. Hansel sits alone and dejected on the school steps. Reading the novel on her phone, she realizes the plot only progresses when the heroine appears and wonders if Hosu is the one driving the story forward. Staring at her phone, she has a horrifying realization. She's just a spectator in this world. In a fit of frustration, she throws her phone, shouting that in her real life she was always the protagonist. The green-haired girl approaches a stunned Hansel, asking if she's okay, to which Hansel weakly replies that she's fine. Clutching her head, Hansel despairs over her embarrassing excitement and wonders how she will ever get home. The green-haired girl invites her to play dodgeball, noting that Baekhosu's class is also playing, which Hansel finds brutal. On the court, the pink-haired girl chats with the short-haired girl, confirming that Baekhosu's class is indeed playing. The short-haired girl asks Gayul if she's good at dodgeball, and she confidently boasts she's top tier, making Hansel reflect on how she shines on her own. The green-haired girl whispers that Gahul must be the famous transfer student, noting she already has friends, which seems to sadden Hansel. Holding a volleyball, Hansel anxiously wonders about her own fate, as someone off-screen praises Gayul for a great catch. A wave of anger washes over Hansel as she winds up to throw the ball. Thwack! Hansel hurls the ball directly into Gayul's face. The other girls, including Hansel, stare in wide-eyed shock at what just happened. Gayul stands frozen, a trickle of blood running from her nose. Hansel panics and apologizes profusely, while internally she seems to be calculating her next move with a look of determination. Hosu and his friends watch from the sidelines, their expressions a mixture of shock and concern. Hansel looks around and asks aloud if anyone has seen Baekhosu. Alerted by the mention of his name, Baekhosu turns to look. Spotting him, Hansel stops in her tracks, a slight gasp escaping her. The other girls rush to Gayul, shouting for an ambulance, while Hansel thinks to herself that she's doomed. Students on the court murmur in disbelief that the new transfer student has a nosebleed on her first day. Gayul panics, grabbing her hair and worrying that everyone will think she's a freak. She collapses in despair, insisting it was an accident and worrying that people will think badly of her and Baekhosu. Hansel rushes to Gayul, apologizing again and offering to take her to the nurse's office. Laughing brightly, Gayul cheerfully dismisses the incident as a quote-quote day initiation for a transfer student. She explains to the other girls that a headshot means they redo the catch, and they marvel at how nice she is. Suddenly, Hansel screams as she collapses to the ground. A boy with short black hair hurls a ball, shouting for vengeance for the transfer student. Lying face down, Hansel groans, wondering what this crazy situation is. Dazed and confused, she remains on the ground. Baekhosu appears beside her, looking down with a concerned expression as he calls out his name. Pointing angrily, Big Hosu scolds two other students for trying to kill someone with a ball, questioning why a heavenly king is even playing dodgeball. As a short-haired girl stretches and announces it's time to go, Hansel watches them. Big Hosu brushes off Hansel's thanks, telling his lackey to let him know if anyone bothers her again. Big Hosu complains about a heavenly king having to clean up as a voice from off-screen, orders him and the transfer student to help. The pink-haired girl, Seogahyul, is startled to be included and internally grumbles about the lack of discretion. Hosu yells at Seogahyul, giving her the new nickname, Pumpkin Bleed, which leaves her fuming. Watching them argue from afar, Hansel silently reflects that since they're the protagonists, their union might signify the end of the story. An uneasy feeling grows within Hansel as she wonders why the sight of them together bothers her so much. Having finished their task, Hosu tells a quiet Seogahyul that it's time to leave. Seogahyul cheerfully fishes for praise about how fast she was, but Hosu just gives her an unimpressed grunt. Hosu tells the pumpkin not to get another nosebleed as she reaches for the door, which rattles but doesn't open. Both Hosu and Seogahyul stare in wide-eyed shock at the unmoving door. With a shadow cast over his face, Hosu realizes in horror that they are locked in. Bam! Bam! Hosu furiously kicks the door while Seogahyul watches, stunned. Seogahyul lets out a terrified scream. Hosu demands to know why the door is locked, as Seogahyul frantically checks her pink phone. Crying, Seogahyul announces she's out of text credits, and an annoyed Hosu dismisses her phone as useless. Hosu slumps to the floor in defeat, realizing he's stuck, while Seogahyul worries they'll be trapped unless the 5th period PE class arrives. Seogahyul breaks down into uncontrollable sobs, leaving Hosu completely bewildered by her dramatic outburst. Outside a classroom, Hansel mentions the PE class is starting soon, while another student asks what 6th period is. Her friends explain that PE was suddenly changed to extra English, and another adds that she heard from Damtang all PE classes were cancelled today. The news that PE was cancelled sends Hansel and her friends into a state of collective shock. Cheonyang solemnly reveals that Hosu has claustrophobia resulting from a past trauma. Upon hearing this, Hansel immediately decides she has to go check on him. Determined, Hansel breaks into a run down the school hallway. Trapped in the cold storage room, Seogahyul frets that 2 hours have passed while Hosu shivers on the floor, feeling like he's freezing. Seogahyul rushes to Hosu's side, noticing his cold sweat and panicked breathing, and urges him to look at her. A flashback reveals a man coldly telling a young Hosu to reflect on his wrongdoing. In the dark memory, a voice commands someone to open the door. A terrified young Hosu bangs on the door, desperately pleading to be let out. In the present, Hosu gasps for air, his face contorted in sheer panic. Seogahyul realizes he must be afraid of dark, cramped spaces as Hosu trembles, muttering about old memories surfacing. Trying to help, Seogahyul offers to play a song she has downloaded on her phone. As the song plays, Hosu remains curled up in distress, and she worries that the music might be too loud. Seogahyul wonders what to do as Hosu unexpectedly begins to sing along with the lyrics about forgiveness. A determined look crosses Seogahyul's face as she resolves to shift his focus onto her instead. She leaps to her feet with arms outstretched, telling Hosu to focus on her while she sings about innocent feelings. Seogahyul strikes a series of bizarre poses, declaring that he's not in a storage room but a music vault. Surrounded by an imaginary background of cartoon puppies, Hosu stares at her strange performance in utter confusion, wondering what is wrong with her.